Life after the Kentucky Derby begins on Saturday with a couple of big stakes races coming up at Belmont Park, including the Grade 1 Man of War and the Peter Pan, the latter of which is generally known as a prep for next month's Belmont Stakes. Nick Tamero here to go over those stakes races. Joining me, Darren Zokelli. Darren, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Other than I'm just a little bit disappointed. I really liked a horse that I thought was going to be in the Peter Pan named Rich Strike, but I heard that he ran on Saturday instead, so I don't get to bet him this week.
Yeah, I'll tell you, he probably would have still been about 25 or 30 to 1 at this race, which is pretty amazing in and of itself. I had a friend say to me, what price do you think that horse would have gone off in the allowance race earlier on the card that was won by Creative Minister? And I said, well, maybe half of his 80 to 1 from the Kentucky Derby. But of course, much respect out for Rich Strike and his connections for pulling off one of the biggest Derby upset in our lifetimes.
Oh, without question. It was, I saw somebody tweet out, I think Andy Serling tweeted out that, Mind That Bird's past performances look like Secretariat next to this horse. It was quite an anomaly. Every year we go back and we try to find reasons why we could have liked the Derby winner if we didn't. I don't really come up with anything that if you would have put this horse third or fourth just as a clunk up for a try or super, I have no problem with that. But having this horse roll past the field, I mean, if you go back and watch the race, everything had to break right. The jockey made every right decision. Every hole opened up at the exact right moment, and it led to what I labeled as a perfect storm, and you get a wild result.
Let's get to business for Saturday afternoon, which starts in the Man of War at Belmont Park. It goes as race number 8, the first Grade 1 of the Belmont Park meet. And Darren, I think we've got kind of a two-horse showdown, maybe a third one lingering, but those two horses, of course, are Gufo and Yabir. Gufo, a Grade 1 winner in his own right, and Yabir, the defending Breeders' Cup Turf champion.
Yeah, Gufo comes into this off a nice win in the Pan American. He's second race back off the layoff. He really came back looking awfully good to kick off his 5-year-old campaign. If that's an indication of the type of horse he's going to be all season long, it certainly seems like he's poised to really be a major player in this turf marathon company throughout the year leading up to the Breeders' Cup Turf. And off that performance, you have to figure he has a big chance here. Christophe Clemenceau Rosario, everything seems to be firing on all cylinders. The interesting thing with Yabir is that if he had come into this straight off the Dubai race, I probably would have liked him more than I do with him having this race on April the 29th, where I watched the replay of it, Nick, and I don't know how you felt about it, but I didn't really give him much of an excuse. It was a short field. It looked like he should have rolled past those horses, and it just looked like he didn't come with his best run in the stretch. And now he's coming back in 2 weeks and going to go a mile and a half again, shipping again. Seems like they're asking an awful lot of this horse. He's extremely talented, and he's a serious horse. But this is a tall order for this horse to come over here off 2 weeks shipping again, off what was probably his worst performance since last July.
Yeah, I agree. And he's a horse that they have campaigned pretty aggressively in the past. Maybe not quite coming back 2 weeks after a performance like he is in this particular race. And look, I mean, he was 25 cents to the dollar. He was supposed to win. It was definitely an upset. I'm still, given that they said from pretty early on the Man of War was his next big objective, I'm wondering how much Charlie Appleby treated that Betfair Exchange Jockey Club, granted a Group 2, but as a race that would tighten the screws a little bit. This horse is also an incredibly good fit for a place like Belmont Park, where he gets the broad sweeping turns and can unleash that late kick. I thought his Shima Classic performance was probably better than his Breeders' Cup Turf effort. And there was no pace on whatsoever. He was the only horse who made a move from off the pace, came down the middle of the track and nearly won the race. In what would have been one of the more memorable winning performances we've ever seen in that race. So I agree. And I think the concern, of course, is, are they, getting after him maybe a little bit much off of a bad or a subpar performance for a horse of his standards? Of course, the other reason why we're seeing him in America is that he's a gelding, and they don't want to take away any opportunities for some of their potential stallions in big races over there. So I think Yabir is going to have a very American-oriented campaign that could potentially include a trio of Grade 1 stops in New York prior to the Breeders' Cup. I liked a bond going into that Pan American that you mentioned, and I felt pretty good when they were coming off the turn. And the comment is as accurate as can be. Gufo inhaled him. I mean, he brought him in and spit him out. This is a horse that showed talent as a 3-year-old. I thought he took a pretty clear step forward as a 4-year-old. He might be at his best as a 5-year-old. The other potential advantage that he has on Yabir, and I hope that the situation presents itself properly, is I think he can move first. And I wonder if that might be the edge because it looks like the speed is a little suspect.
I agree. That was my takeaway as well. I thought he would get first run on Yabir, and the fact that Gufo was coming off such an incredible performance off the layoff, where Yabir seemed to regress a little bit off that huge effort that you talked about in the Shima Classic. That's why I kind of went a little bit more towards Gufo. I also think that Highland Chief is going to have an impact on this race because you look at that last race and you go, oh, an allowance. He never picked up his feet. What's he doing in this spot? This is a true marathon horse who wants every bit of a mile and a half. That race was really just to tighten the screws. And also, if you go back and watch his replays, I'm not saying he's quick early, but he's not going to be 12 lengths off the pace against this field. He might be the horse that also keeps horses like Sohai and Aban a little bit honest here and ensures a good enough clip for a horse like Gufo to come from off the pace.
That would seem to make sense, given some of his past exploits. Could mention, of course, Aban, who we didn't really talk about. I think it's going to take he's going to have to get better outside of Florida, and that just doesn't always happen with these types.
No, those speedy types really could take advantage of that turf course at times. Depends on what the rail situation is. Are they up? Are they down? And what part of the meet it is as well. Aban is a perfect fit for the Gulfstream Park turf course. When he comes up and faces these serious horses in these tough turf races over in tracks like Belmont, I think this is where the water gets a little bit deep for him.
Yeah, I feel the same way. That's now an extended look at the Man of War, which is going to take place on Saturday afternoon, race 8 at Belmont Park. Make sure you're playing along at twinspires.com. For Darren Zocali, Nick Tamero here. Until next time, best of luck.